I'm John Kearon, Chief Juicer of Brain Juicer. In case you're wondering, it's not a food company. We squeeze people's brains until they confess something fascinating. Okay, it's market research. I mean, it's just trying to make market research sexy. Okay, I mean, you know, it's a hard task. Anyone that has been, I remember my first boss said, you haven't slept until you've been in the GFK presentation. You know, that's the reality. Now, I love this theater. The only disappointment is that, actually, there are some people up there. Hang on. Yes, there are. I didn't realize. I thought everyone had been corralled down here. But what an amazing kind of place. It feels great. And basically what I'm going to talk to you about, although it says advertising, I'm hopefully going to share something with you that will help in whatever it is you are trying to achieve. Because I suspect the people in this room are rather self-motivated. The people in this room are probably trying to achieve something interesting. And I hope that the insight that I'm going to share is just useful, you know, in whatever you're trying to achieve. All right, so let's start. Who in the room has heard of System 1, System 2 thinking? All right, just put up a hand if you have heard of System 1, System 2 thinking. I'm seeing about one hand. I mean, really? Really? Okay, two. We've got two. All right. So just by contrast, who has heard of left brain, right brain thinking? Everyone. All right. Okay. So here you go. This is now going to be the 15-minute bluffer's guide to behavioral economics and System 1, System 2 thinking. Daniel Kahneman, who is the only non-economist to win the Nobel Prize for Economics, he's a psychologist, put forward the idea of System 1, System 2. System 1 is the old, almost reptilian brain. It's the emotional, instinctive, intuitive brain. It's the quick-thinking brain. Anyone who's read Blink, Malcolm Gladwell's Blink, will know that's basically System 1. System 2 is this bit, the cognitive frontal lobes, the really clever, deliberative, intelligent, cognitive, slow thinking, the bit that we praise as making us distinct from other animals, and it's impressive. But here's the rub, okay? Here's the rub for marketing, advertising, for anything that you're trying to communicate. System 2 turns out to be the equivalent of about 50 bits of computing power versus System 1, which is 11 million. 50 bits, 11 million. It will probably have dawned on you, even if you're not using your System 2, that this has some implications for communication, okay? We think much less than we think we think. Okay? We basically make emotional, instinctive decisions, and then we post-rationalize them. So the best phrase that I heard recently, I loved this. It turns out that our System 2 frontal lobes, which our own sense is that it's the Oval Office of our decision-making, turns out to be the press office. Okay? So it's the reason, there was a brilliant article I read that proved that most automobile advertising in magazines is basically read after you've bought the car, not before. Why would that be? Might it be because you've made a totally emotional decision, which you now have to justify to your friends, family, wife, husband, whatever, so you need a few facts and figures. That's what we do all the time, okay? And I'm going to demonstrate each of these, the System 1. So those that are ready, I don't know where this is going, it's too dark. Right, let's get the back involved. I have no idea what, oh my God. I did this recently in America. Disaster, I tell you, disaster. It was a big room, even bigger, and I sort of threw one. And there was someone working on their iPad with a cup of coffee just in front, and I, brilliant Olympian that I am, managed to get it into the cup of coffee, which spilt on the iPad. And it was like, I promise you, the whole room went silent. I had killed his baby. I mean, I had actually killed an iPad, possibly. I mean, it was the scariest moment. Anyway, catching is instinctive. It's totally instinctive. You don't calculate, you're not calculating the angle of trajectory. You're basically just instinctively catching it. That's totally system one, riding a bicycle, all that sort of stuff, yeah? System two, let's demonstrate system two, just to show that we think a little bit less than we think we think. Daniel Kahneman, in his Nobel acceptance speech, gave this as an example. If a bat and a ball costs $1.10 together, and the bat is $1 more than the ball, how much is the ball? And what's the number that comes straight into your head? Be honest. What's the number? If the bat and the baller is $1.10, the bat is $1 more than the ball is 10, yeah? 10. It's screaming in your head, 10, it's got to be 10. Of course it's not 10. If it was 10 and the bat was $1 more than the ball, the bat would be $1.10 and it'd be $1.20 together. Okay? It's 5. But what Kahneman says is it's a typical example of the way that we think. We take a plausible answer, a kind of believable, plausible answer, and we run with that. It seems about right. Okay? It's about right. Let's go with it. One of my fellow directors did a speech to 1,000 accountants. That's a scary audience, 1,000 accountants. And he asked them, he said, okay, how many of you have bought a car in the last 5 years? And most people put up their hand. He said, how many of you did a discounted cash flow analysis of the options of the cars to make sure that you were buying the most, kind of highest value, sustainable value? And there was a small group down in the front of actuaries, the really brainy kind of accountants. But that was it. Even accountants, even in our professional lives, we don't actually, do all this sort of analysis on ourselves. So system one, system two. We're basically making decisions instinctively, emotionally, system one. All right? So now we're going to introduce the world of communication, of marketing, of whatever. And by the way, you will also have gathered the content of what all of our speakers are sharing with you matters so much less than we think it matters. Okay, you won't remember any of the content or very little bits of it, but you might remember how you felt at the time. Okay, so that's kind of how it does. But let's do marketing and advertising. All right. I chose to do this presentation without any PowerPoint, which I think normally is a good thing because we need less PowerPoint. I apologize because on this occasion it means that you've only got English, no pictures to give you any clues. But how do you demonstrate what makes famous advertising famous without showing any adverts? Well, I will give you an example. Now, just one cornetto, give it to me, delicious ice cream from Italy. Now, for those of you that were in England, you will remember this advert because, in fact, it's the only advert that anyone ever remembers for Cornetto handheld ice creams. It ran between 1976 and 1979. It hasn't run since, and it made the brand leader. And your version of this might be something like Haribo Mackindorfro. Okay? Yeah? Okay, you're with me? I'm not saying that you have to sing the damn advert. Just examples, just illustrating. And the point about these adverts is they have almost no content. Okay? The most famous adverts ever that create massive commercial effect have almost no message. Okay? Whereas most adverts that you are subjected to on a nightly, daily, weekly basis try and shove messages into you, yeah? Because it seems plausible, remember Kahneman's plausibility, it seems plausible that advertising and communication works like this. It's like a fist of a brand proposition wrapped in a velvet glove of emotion. Okay? Emotion has a role, but it's a carrier. It's like a Trojan horse for the message. Yeah? So it's you know, the emotion is just a trick. Well, no. It turns out that the emotion and how you feel is the damn point. Okay? It becomes part of the brand. If you think of any, you know, famous adverts from childhood or whatever, it's actually the advert. The advert isn't a way of communicating the unique selling proposition of the brand. It becomes part of the brand, okay? That's the point. The point is we are emotional animals, and we make decisions emotionally. The world's biggest advertising pre-testing company is called Millward Brown. I don't know, has anyone in the room had the misfortune to be on the other end of a Millward Brown? Probably a few. Anyway, yes, Ozzy has. Well, as far as I'm concerned, one of my many missions, but this is one for today, is Millward Brown are going down. Okay? Really, Millward Brown are measuring fist of a proposition wrapped in a velvet glove of emotion. I personally have copies of some very famous adverts that created brand leaders that failed Millward Brown. The Cadbury Gorilla in the UK has been a huge, phenomenal success. For those of you that haven't seen this, it's a man in a gorilla suit playing drums to Phil Collins in the Air Tonight. It's mad. It's just mad, but joyous. It makes you laugh. It makes you just smile. It's got nothing to do with chocolate. No one really remembered at first that it was for Cadbury, and it basically has been the single most successful advert they have ever made. How can an advert work if you can't remember the name of it afterwards? Yeah, that's the question I nearly always after this talk get asked by serious clients who are spending serious millions of euros on serious advertising, producing serious commercial end. How can it work? Well, because system 1, system 2, market research is system 2. I'm asking you experience this advert, system 1. You love it. It's joyous. Then I come along with my clipboard and I ask you a system 2 question. Yeah, can you remember the advert? What was the message of the advert? No, can't remember, I just loved it. Okay? When I'm actually in the shop and I'm hungry and I fancy something, all I need to do is see Cadbury, or I see a little bit of purple, which is their color, and all of that emotional stuff floods back. And that's how it works. It works because actually when you're making an emotional decision, you recall emotional stuff, and that's kind of, you know, how famous adverts work. Okay. So, if emotion is important, how do you measure emotion? Yeah, it's kind of important. There is a guy called Paul Ekman. If anyone has watched, there's a US series called Lie to Me, and Lie to Me, basically Dr. Lightman, and it's all based on Dr. Ekman's stuff, and he says there are 7 emotions, okay? And to finish this, I'm going to demonstrate the 7 emotions to you, because the best way to demonstrate it is you have to feel it, okay? So, emotion number 1 of 7, happiness. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to pull a big smile. Even if you're feeling miserable and you just want to get to the Café and Kuchen, okay? Just big smile. And, okay, really big, and then just add a little chuckle. just add a little chuckle. There's a mad, in India, there's this laughter sort of therapy, which is, you know, it feels as bonkers as that did, by the way. Fear is the second. So happiness is the first. Fear is the second. Sadness is the third. So whether it be, you know, last night's football stadium disaster in Egypt. And the thing about sadness is it's very passive, and it pulls you towards. So if someone is sad, the purpose of sadness is that it pulls people to help you. Yeah? Sadness then, if you like, you know, so if it was starvation in Africa or so, you know, can lead to anger. And anger is much more active, as it sounds. You know, you've got to actually turn, you know, sadness into anger in order to get people to do something. So I don't know how big it was here, but Bob Geldorf, who did Live Aid and is famous in the UK. And basically, for me, what he did was he turned the sadness that people felt about, starvation in Africa, and he turned it into anger. He was angry about it, and he was famous for sort of swearing on television and kind of, berating people. His famous phrase that everyone now knows was, he's Irish, and he was quite eloquent. After about 4 hours of bands playing and people weren't donating very much, he just came on television, came straight up to the camera and says, "Give us your fucking money." And it was like, and after that, it just, woof, he was angry, everyone was angry, it's like the money started, emotion, okay? It's much, much better to generate even negative emotions than it is neutral. When it comes to advertising or any communication, if someone feels nothing, they will do nothing. The worst thing you can do is produce a neutral response. And how much of everything that we do becomes very safe and sensible? Yeah, and it shouldn't be safe and sensible. It needs to have some edge in order to provoke you to feel something. Ryanair's tagline should be the world's worst airline and proud of it. But they make you mad as hell, but you feel something. Airlines that are totally neutral are actually worse off than that. The other emotion that's interesting is contempt. Contempt is a difficult one, but it's that look. When someone gives you a complete look, when people are arguing politics, you often get contempt. There's a total lack of respect for the other person, yeah? The other interesting thing about contempt, here you go, you're going to learn something else, which I hope you'll never have to use. There is a psychologist in the west coast of America who has a 94% successful prediction rate on whether marriages, whether couples who come to him for therapy will split up or stay together. He never meets them, okay? He's never met any of these couples. What he does is he gets them into a room and they have to argue about a familiar argument. So pick something that you always argue about, and they film them. And they film them for, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And he watches the film, and all he's looking for is contempt. So if the couple shout and scream and they're angry and they're sad and they're crying, and that's fine. You'll stay together. Okay, that's just normal, that's human. If there's contempt between them, that's the killer. Yeah, that's the killer in relationships. It's also, if people feel contempt about a brand, it's a killer as well. So maybe Ryanair may not be so good, I don't know. So we've got the emotions, okay? So we've got happiness, we've got fear. One that I've missed out. How could I possibly miss out? I'm not going to throw these because no one else will see them. But can you see these? Disgust. This is, I'm glad to say, a fake dog turd. Okay? This is a piece of poo, and this is a piece of poo. And I went into the local joke shop in Cambridge, where I live, to buy 4 of these. And I went with my 11-year-old son, he's my youngest, and he came in and I bought 4. And he looked at me and he said, "What are you buying? What are you buying, 4 for?" And I promise you, this was the first time in his life he'd ever asked. I said, "Well, it's for a talk. I'm giving a talk, and they're for the talk." And he looked at me and he said, "What do you do?" That's the 6th emotion. The 7th emotion. The 7th emotion. The 7th emotion is surprise. At this point, you may be feeling some of the other emotions too. including the last one of disgust, contempt, and possibly not happiness. Although my favorite tweet of last year, when I did this in America, I thought I'd get arrested, was somebody said, "The chief juicer has just mooned us. I think we liked it." And with 6 seconds to go, all I'll share with you is something an actress friend of mine said. "John, you have to remember, bottoms are funny, balls are not."